Okay, so who's ready to share what was something that you had in your conversation around the areas of overlap or a connection to the essential question? And we'll go around. We'll have all the tables share, so whatever order. Okay?
We said that really any of the ELA standards that have the content, W.9, for instance,
Sure.
any of those can be applied cross-content because we're using writing cross-content.
Okay.
So those are obviously something that it's a writing tool or a writing concept, but it can be applied across the curriculum.
Okay, so safe to say then the literacy, because of, I'm guessing Kentwood's initiative is literacy across content, which is everywhere. You see that fitting that way.
Right.
Great, great. Another table. Yeah.
We originally set ours up not in 4 pounds, but we had an umbrella. And so we had the 4 domains, social studies, math, science, and writing.
Okay.
Encompassed underneath developing and using models, looking for more of the verbs that cross all content areas. So like him just saying how they all of these appear under our umbrella 4 domains.
Okay, so you picked what you thought to be some that spoke. Okay, so you already isolated the ones that were okay. You even when you sorted the cards, you already made those overlaps, and you have that overarching. Okay, great. Thank you.
After we got over the font size.
Gotcha. Right. Great. Great. Okay. All right. 4 more tables.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, using the language to comprehend more fully when reading or listening, and connecting that with the math parts where you're making sense of problems and persevere through them. But also there's something in here, I just missed it. Construct viable arguments. I mean, you're using that
Right.
language to support your thinking.
Right.
So like if I go back to that original question, is something about what are the limits of arithmetic? I mean, students are gonna have to speak and verbalize their thoughts in an effective
Right.
manner. So it ties in with that ELA.
Right. Absolutely. Great. Any of thank you. Who would like to starting the argument piece? That piece can be elaborated on as well, right? The argument component is a big piece that you see across content. You're seeing language that speaks to that across all of them, especially if you look at these processes or practices. All right. So 3 more tables. What were some of the things? We're running out of ideas, but maybe getting to the essential question connection.
We just talked about all of these, on these cards, is you have to have that deeper level thinking to achieve, to get any of these, to students to understand them, to do that. So
Great.
it ties right into essential questions, because you can't, develop in using models when you're, at a surface level or whatnot.
Yeah, skills are really setting you up to get into that deep thinking, that deep processing. Great.
We kind of, like Nick up there, we kind of started talking about the idea of argument and then trying to figure out how to craft a bigger question with something like, how can you use evidence to support your opinions, your arguments, your thinking? That could be something that we hope.
Right. Right. Yeah, the argument piece. Great. Good. Anything else? This table, did you have? What was your? Felt like it? Okay.
Felt like it was
Okay.
covered.
Okay.
Can I just say too?
Absolutely.
I thought that the activity itself was an answer to an essential question, because you're having to justify and you're analyzing each piece that's on the table here, and you're trying to justify why one belongs in another. Do we create a whole new column? And I think if you went around to each group, you probably have things a little bit differently in each one of the piles.
Sure.
So that's I appreciate that. Our academic support coaches do a great job of actually teaching and using within their trainings, their PDs, activities, and I think that this is a fascinating activity to do.
Okay.
We're talking about some of the things you could actually do with activity like this.
Right. Great. And thank you, everyone. And I appreciate the engagement, really, that you've shown as a group in the activities and the discussion. One question I have is that when we look at these college and career ready skills, is what direction or what are these built for? Who is the audience? And this is one of the things that I think the Common Core really gets to, and this will kind of springboard us into where we're going. But we're going to take a break. But when you see these skills and these processes, where does this go? What is the end game here? Yeah?
I think we're trying to get them to think deeper and be independent thinkers.
Right. So the students,
Yeah, because
right?
often I know my students, they want me to tell them, tell me the answer. They had to know
Right.
the exact answer.
Right.
And I think not always being, exactly right, sometimes we learn from each other by that.
Right.
So.
Right. And where we're moving in that direction is, yes, we're giving you these to make them to help you make connections and to see them in black and white. But the key thing that we're going to talk more about moving into our next few sections are, how are we getting the students to model and demonstrate that? So we see these as where kids need to be, but how are we going to get them to that place? How are they going to take the ownership? How are they going to get engaged and involved in making that happen? All right? All right. Please do.
So one of the, like we discussed, we've done this activity with multiple districts and schools, and it was a couple of ahas came for us when, to piggyback off of what he just said, is we had worked through this activity with a group of staff, and then we realized when we were kind of doing that, like peeping Tom into your conversations, that while the teachers were engaged in the conversation, it became clear to us that they weren't really like internalizing that these higher level thinking things were what we wanted kids to do. And when we asked that question, okay, who's supposed to be doing the analyzing or the justifying or the providing evidence or the arguing, you could have heard like crickets in the room. Because while they knew what category each of these belonged in, it kind of was like an aha for them and for us, that they are the ones usually doing most of that deeper level thinking in their classrooms, not their kids. They, as teachers, are carrying the cognitive load through all of this, not their students. And so it's this idea of moving in that gradual release from you bearing the weight of that, and how do we form our classroom structure so that those kids, start to carry the load for that work. That was one of our ahas. And the other one, and I kind of let the cat out of the bag on this already, was this idea of, for the example of evidence and argument, we were listening to a group of elementary teachers, not actually doing this activity, but a different activity where we were just kind of being our boring selves and talking through what the mathematical practices are. And Mark was talking through what the anchor standards were for ELA, when a teacher provided us a great learning moment and said, I see this connection between the work that I do as an elementary teacher, having to teach both ELA and math, that this idea of evidence is so important. And I'm so great, this was her describing it, I'm so great in my ELA classroom about making kids provide evidence for whatever argument that they're doing when we are in our ELA parts of the world. But when we get into mathematics, I don't ever make them provide evidence for what conjecture or what reason that they just gave behind the moves that they did in math. So it was a great bridging moment for them. And as you as teachers or administrators start to have these conversations, because our heart really goes out to elementary folks who do have to become experts now in all content areas and kind of internalizing all of this, that's a great a bridge. And we saw, Mark and I had this opportunity to see a teacher in Oakland County, and she was a math teacher, and she was talking about word problems, and the kids were having to decide, how do I know if I'm supposed to multiply or divide, because they had just kind of finished that unit. And she was doing a workshop model, and so she had all of her kids sitting on the rug in front of her, and she said to them, which Mark and I almost died in the back of the room, she said to them, what was the author's purpose for this problem? So she wasn't in ELA land, she was in math land, but she was having them read a word problem, and the kids had to just determine what the author's purpose was. And when you determine the author's purpose, then you know if you're supposed to multiply or you're supposed to divide. And so just by using that language in both her ELA and mathematics classes, the kids just are learning to make sense of whatever text is put in front of them, whether they're doing it in math or science or social studies or ELA. And that was a huge kind of aha for us and has really kind of formed some of the work that we've been doing as of late. But I feel like these practices and processes provide opportunities, especially for elementary folks who do have to do it all, to start to use a common set of language across content areas in their classrooms. So I just didn't mean to steal your thunder, but I just wanted to add